It's on the basis of the computer. It's not even Internet of Things yet. However, we are moving forward to it for sure. As I already present 3 speakers with us, however, only Robbie Guevara appears to be with us already. So we would like to have Robbie first to present your papers, which will be followed by some questions from the audience. I'm not gonna ask each presenter to present first, all together, then followed by some comments, but I would like to have each presenter followed by a comment, or question, or clarification. Robbie is professor from RMIT, Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology. Hopefully I pronounce the name correctly. I still fresh in my mind that I was in Melbourne somewhere 2010, 2011, and even my child right now, my kids is right now studying civil engineering at Monash University. So yes, I'm glad to have you, Robbie, with us. So Robbie, it's now time for you. So I would like you to have share screen with us. If you can do it, please, before you start. Can you try first, Robbie?
Yes, thank you. I will try to share my screen. I think it's still good morning. Selamat pagi. It's already good afternoon here in Melbourne, Australia. So I will share my screen. I have 2 screens to share. I will share a slide, and then I will also share a web page that I hope the students can access. So I'll try to share the slides first.
That's good, Robbie. We have it over here already. You may start now.
Can I check? You can see the full slides, okay?
Yes.
And then if I, and then I'm just going to see if I can shift to the web page. I'm just going to see if I can shift to the web page, which is also there. You can see the web page. Okay. So let me start. I have 20 minutes, is that correct, Mr. Moderator?
Yes, you may have 20 to 30 minutes, it's all right.
Okay. Okay, so good morning, selamat pagi. My name is Jose Roberto Guevara. I'm originally from the Philippines, but all my students, my friends, and I'm happy to be called Robbie. Okay? And so today I've been invited, and I would like to thank ISTE for inviting me. And I'd like to talk about from the perspective of students. I know we have students in the room who are either undergraduate or postgraduate students about global citizenship. And so what I'd like to do is to look at learning to be, to become, and by being global citizens. And I think part of that is this notion, I'm not sure what 4.0 is, but I think 4.0 is about being better at saving and addressing the problems we have in our world, particularly I think for us who are involved in some form of change in education. So what I'd like to do is just to be able first and to explore from your own experience. As a teacher, as an educator, I often begin with what the students bring. I believe that part of that commitment is the commitment to be able to appreciate the glass is not empty, but actually half full. So I'd like you to reflect on what makes you a global citizen, and I invite the students later on through a Mentimeter, and hopefully people will be familiar with the Mentimeter, which is an online tool. And then I'd like you to deepen this reflection by giving you some frameworks, global frameworks, like the SDGs, okay, which are very important to guide us in terms of the transformation that we seek for our world, but particularly the kind of transformation that we seek for the kind of education that we will need. And finally, to be able to identify specific actions that we ourselves can do as educators, as students, as learners, as members of our community. So I'd like to begin with this outline by beginning with an acknowledgement. As I said, I have 3 questions, and I invite the students, these are not test questions, these are survey questions. And I also have 3 points to look at: learning to be, learning to become, and learning by being a global citizen. And I'll try to summarize before the end of my time. So let me start first by acknowledgement, and I think, thank you, Papake, in terms of, yes, I also studied at Monash when I first came to Australia 30 years ago now. I studied at Monash University, and as a young student as from the Philippines, I was really trying to understand the culture of where I am. And so you might be familiar that Australia is currently going through a referendum in 2 weeks where we talk about recognition of our indigenous people. So I'd like, on behalf of RMIT, to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations as the traditional owners of the unceded land on which our university stands. It is within the spirit of truth-telling by the First Peoples, our indigenous peoples, that the aspirations for change that I respectfully recognize elders, past, present, and emerging. And I think for all of us, it's important to recognize that starting point that we are, and particularly for me as a migrant, I recognize that I have been accepted and embraced in this university, in this particular society here in Melbourne. But I also talk about global citizenship today, not because I studied global citizenship. I actually studied an environmental science in the Philippines. So I'm an environmental scientist by training. But I found myself working and learning with communities in the Philippines about our environment and how we can deal with our environment. And so a lot of my work on global citizenship has come from learnings that I've had with the communities of indigenous people, of women, of fisher folks, of farmers in the Philippines, and more recently with the work that I'm doing in the Asia-Pacific region and as president of the International Council for Adult Education. So this is what I bring. I do a lot of teaching in universities, where I am at the moment, but also I do a lot of teaching and learning with communities in different parts of the world. And so I invite the students, and you can see the QR code, so the staff and the students, and we tested this, hopefully it will work. So can I ask the students to copy the QR code and try to answer 3 questions. So I'll leave this for a while, so you can scan, or you can type www.menti.com and put in the code 46735926. You will see 3 questions, and I will just preview the questions. You can answer them at your own pace. Okay, the first question is around, are you a global citizen? So don't be afraid to respond. You will not be known. You will not be marked by your teachers. So you can still see the QR code there at the bottom. So if you can take a picture of the QR code, or I'll go back to the big QR code so people can try to do that again if you missed it. So that's the first question. Are you a global citizen? Yes, maybe, not yet. The second question now is, whether you're a citizen or global citizen or not, what 2 traits will make you a global citizen? So you can pick 2. The first is, I can identify, understand, and or evaluate global processes, problems, or challenges. I can understand the effect of individual action on global issues. I am committed to human rights, cultural sensitivity, and an open perspective. I am involved in either individual or collective action and or have a willingness to act to advance the common good. So just pick 2 again. Again, there's no correct answer, okay? It's your answer that matters. And finally, how have you demonstrated your capacity to be a global citizen? Talk about actions, talk about things that you have done as a young person, as a student, as a researcher, as an educator. How have you contributed to change in the world as a global citizen? Okay. So I'm going to shift now into so we can start to see some of the results, because I'm going to shift to the website so I can see if people are responding. So far we only have 5 people responding, so I hope we can get more. I will display the questions, the QR code again. I'm sure there are more than 5 people in the room.
I did it already, Robbie.
Thank you. Okay, so just let's give our students time. Can you check for me, please? Because again, I'm happy to. We can give it a bit more time, but I'd like to give them time to respond before I continue. Can I call you Pak Zain?
I pick up the first answer. Yes, I'm a global citizen.
The students, of course, will look at our teachers and say, we are all global citizens. And so are we getting more responses? And I'll see. So the second slide, we also have, we have 7 and 5, and then we have only 2 so far in the last. Okay, so let's just wait. Okay, I think what I'll do is just, if you can answer the questions while I'm going, so we can get more students to respond.
Ayo, pada
Okay.
ngisi. Ayo, semuanya yang situ juga ngisi.
Are they responding, Pak Zain?
Yep, I invited them to do so. I'm just wondering how many responses already you received already, Robbie?
7.
7.
7. How many students in the room? 100?
We have like 25 in here already.
Okay. So don't be shy. I might put up the big QR code again. It might be helpful.
Yep, that's the barcode. Yep.
Yep.
Oh, sorry.
Let's do that again.
The quick response code.
Oh, now I know what it means. I thought it.
Ayo ngisi, Mbak, ngikut ngisi karena ditunggu. Yo, operator ngisi juga. Scan using Google Lens. You'll be directed to
4.0. We need to teach our students to be IT savvy.
Yes, 4.0. On the basis of Internet of Things.
Yep. Or otherwise, you can put the simple is you can type www if you have a computer www.menti.com and you put the code in. Okay. Okay. So while the students are doing that, let me proceed. Okay. So there are 3 questions that I'd like you to focus on. Okay. So what I invited the students to do is to reflect on what makes you a global citizen. Okay. And so whether you said yes or no and what characteristics we will find out. But what studies have shown is that when we start to look at responding to global citizenship, people come up with a lot of attitudes, empathy, skills like critical thinking, skills of communication, conflict resolution, a sense of security of identity, shared universal values of human rights, peace, justice, respect for diversity, intercultural understanding, and the recognition of global issues as interconnected. The environment is connected to the social, the economic, the political, and of course, the cultural aspect. But it's not, that doesn't make it any easier for us as both teachers and students, because it's like a long list. You can be anything, okay? So what they've done, and this was at the start when UNESCO was looking at global citizenship as a focus, they said, look, they did a study, how do we measure global citizenship? And they came up with the following definitions, which was on your second slide. First is the capacity to understand, evaluate global processes, challenges, and the effect of individual action. Second was a focus on human rights, cultural sensitivity, and openness perspective. And third, individual or collective action, or a willingness to act, okay, to advance the common good. Again, you have a long list. My suggestion is there's only three elements that we need to remember, both as teachers, educators, and as students. The three things are: one, a global perspective. We understand that the global is not out there, our local is connected to the global. And that this understanding makes you realize that my local action has effects on global issues.
Yep.
So that's the first, an understanding of what we mean by global. It's not just space, it's not just the earth. It's the relationship that we have to the people, the issues that we work with and we study. The second element that you need to remember is that there are principles of global citizenship like human rights, cultural sensitivity, being open to others. So there are principles. And third is, of course, you cannot just understand it, you cannot just believe in it, you need to act on it. Individual, collective action, or the willingness to act for the benefit of others. So from the long list of what global citizenship is, we come up with three core ideas that I'd like you to remember. How am I related to this global? Because the global is not out there. We are all part of the global. The fact that I am here talking to you means that this is part of the global. We believe in principles of citizenship, of global citizenship, of rights, of cultural sensitivity, of openness. Okay? And we believe in doing something about it, both individually and collectively, to benefit the common good. Okay? So that's the first thing that I'd like to emphasize. But the other thing I'd like to say is that global citizenship, and hopefully that you have recognized, it's not an end point. To be learning to be a global citizen sounds like, oh yes, I am now a global citizen, like I'm Superman. Okay? To be, it's like an end point. It's not an end point. Okay? We might still be global citizens now, but we will continue to become global citizens. Because it's not an end point, because we continue to change, we continue to transform. The problems that I faced as a young person when I was studying is different from the problems you are facing now. I did not have the Internet of Things when I was studying at all. I remember typing my thesis in a typewriter before a computer. That's how old I am. Okay? And so what I'm trying to say is we need to start to think that it's not about learning to be a global citizen, it's really about learning to become a global citizen. Because it's a process that's ongoing, it's a process that continues to deepen as you learn, as you act, as you engage with communities and society. And so what I'd like to do now is to help as students, as researchers, and I know you're launching your PhD program, as researchers committed to change, I'd like to deepen this understanding by focusing on where did this idea come from. And so to look at some of the things, I think it's really important for educators to see that in 1996, the UNESCO report called Learning the Treasure Within introduced us to Jacques Delors and what he called there were four concepts of learning throughout life. Learning to know, learning to do, learning to be, and learning to live together. And learning to live together looked at this notion of the global already. And in 1972, learning to be, another UNESCO report, talked about the conceptualization of education and learning worldwide. So there was this notion that learning was not just local, learning had this global dimension. And so for students in education, it's really important for us to see how our understanding of education has changed through time. We don't just embrace a kind of education, we actually contribute to the growth of education. So if you try to look at, I talked about the four pillars: learning to do, to know, to be, and to live together. And in the decade of education for sustainable development, UNESCO suggested an additional learning to become or to transform. How do I try to make this relevant to you? All of us went through COVID, and in COVID time, we started to learn how to do in terms of washing our hands. We started to know more about the virus. We started to be. okay, in terms of trying to be distant with each other, but trying to live together. And I know a lot of young people try to transform and help what was happening in the community despite all the lockdowns and separation. And so part of that is evidence that in COVID time, we were starting to become what they call as global citizens. Okay? In some literature, they might call this development education. It used to be educating the rich countries like Australia, like the United States or Europe, for example, about the problems in the third world. Now it's no longer development education, is a broader framework for learning about change in our world. And so we see this in SDG 4.7, Education for Sustainable Development and Global Citizenship. So this is a global call, particularly when you start to look at the SDGs. SDG 4 talks about inclusive, equitable, quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. And what we're trying to achieve is a sustainable world where we prioritize people, planet, partnership, peace, and prosperity. So this is what we're trying to achieve in terms of sustainable development. This is what we're trying to achieve in terms of the kind of learning that we have called lifelong learning. But lifelong learning is not just lifelong, it is also, as they would say, life-wide. In terms of it covers the development in sustainable lifestyle, human rights, gender equality, peace, okay, citizenship, cultural diversity. It's also life deep because it covers also the moral purpose of why we do what we do in education. So it's lifelong, it's life-wide, and it's life deep. And so the most recent report on education of UNESCO is the Social Contract for Education, and it says explicitly the Sustainable Development Goals recognizes students need to consider a wide range of converging approaches to the problems that they face. Students are global citizens that need to be able to gain knowledge and competencies to build a sustainable future in an increasingly interdependent world. And global citizenship must become keenly attuned to the consciousness of our planet, our Earth. And so finally, when we talk about global citizenship and we talk about transforming education, there was a big summit in 2022 at the United Nations that talked about we need not just to transform our world, we need to transform how we learn about our world. So we need to sow the seeds to transform education in a rapidly changing world. So that's the challenge for you students who will want to get into education. What kind of education is relevant to a rapidly changing world? And so therefore, we are not just global citizens, we continue to become global citizens. And we see now the expansion of the three things we talked about. The global as relational, the principles of rights, sensitivity to culture and openness, and the action that we need to do individually and collectively. So how do we learn best to be global citizens? I will argue that we learn best not in the classroom. The classroom is important to provide us the basics, but it's outside the classroom by being global citizens in action that we actually learn best. So what I'd like to do now is I'll go back to the survey, and hopefully we have more responses to our survey, and let's see what you said. Okay, we've had only 9 responses, but I'll just show what people said. Okay, so we've had most of you in the room are global citizens. One said maybe, and hopefully the others are in the journey. Then we have 7 responses in terms of what are the most important traits. Okay, and we have most of the ones are about the global. Remember the trait of the global in terms of relationship and the global in terms of action, human rights, and then, so we have a good spread of people who responded. And finally, what did people do? Okay, and so we have some examples of you make relationship involving global action, with various students, caring, staying informed, took a master with, and so studied and sharing. Okay, so these are examples. In other words, we're not looking for big examples of trying to save the world. I think part of that is being able to recognize, as we said, that the global is relational. The global is about the principles of sharing, and the global is about finding spaces for action. And so let me try to conclude in terms of now trying to see, therefore, one, that global citizenship is not an endpoint. To become a global citizen, we need to continue. So it's an ongoing task. But at the same time, what we need to do is that the best way for us to learn to be global citizens is by being global citizens. And so just to summarize, what I'd like to show is that when we start to look at it, at the center is the SDGs. We want sustainable development, people, planet, partnership, peace, and prosperity. How do we learn to be global citizens? I have argued and presented to you that the global is not about a space, it's about the relationship we have with each other and with other parts of the world. So therefore, it doesn't mean that you do local action that you do not see the global implications of your local action. Second, as citizens, it is through our actions and learning by being global citizens with local communities that we can contribute to achieving the aims of transforming our world to become more equitable and more sustainable. Third, it's not just about teaching. Often we would think about teaching, but it's about encouraging formal, non-formal, and informal learning, life-wide, lifelong, and life-deep approaches that allows us to become better global citizens. And so if we look at what I tried to do, I invited you to reflect, to deepen, and to identify actions in order for you to recognize that it's not just an end point to be a global citizen, it's an ongoing thing, and that by being, we use action. And UNESCO has come up with this reflection process to say that one way for us to strengthen our capacity to be global citizens is to be able to reflect on what we do, share what we do with others, will deepen this, and continue to act is very important for us to be able to achieve a more sustainable and equitable world by being and learning to be global citizens. Terima kasih. Thank you very much. I hope that this inspires you to be able to first recognize that we are all global citizens in the journey. We will continue to learn, and hopefully as educators in the future, and the educators with you now, you will continue to be motivated to contribute to global citizenship. Terima kasih. Maraming salamat.
Thank you, Robbie. It's so clear. I believe that the audience gets interested with your presentations. Before I let the audience ask some comments, some clarification or question to you, I would like to have a comment on your presentation. Well, nothing to reject all ideas about being global citizens. I do agree with that. However, Robbie, what I feel, this is what I feel. As I consider myself, I'm a part of global citizens. I've been moving from one country to the others. I have my child born in the US. I have my child born in Australia. The problem I have right now is that I'm thinking about the politics of global citizens. Who have that idea? Who imposed that idea? It's by big countries, by industrialized countries. They kind of imposing their own value on us. I would rather say, I'm so sorry using this word, maybe it's not that politically correct, but we are from third country, we're from Indonesia, we are Filipino. We are not that big as the US. As the British, as the Germany. They impose their own values and ask us to implement, to adopt that. However, they themselves violated their ideas, their global ideas. Let's say talking about human rights. I'm so sorry, I don't mean to criticize the US, but what the US did already. Back to early 2000, when they invaded Iraq, it is war based on lie. There's no such destructive weapon. However, they try to convince us what the Iraqi government already did is against human rights, so we better invade them. So we killed them without a fair trial. So we well, that's been like taking revenge. Because they are killing us, then we kill them without a fair trial. So the problem I have right now actually is, Robbie, beyond your presentation, well, The problem actually with them, not with us. We could just adopt, we could implement, and we do agree with that. However, they themselves tend to violate their general ideas and universal values. I'm so sorry if it may be a bit contradictory. Back to you, Robbie.
No, I think what you demonstrate is that for a long time, the global has been colonial. That we think that the global means we adopt their way of thinking. That means the global, there's only one way of looking at also human rights, okay? But I think what you're trying to say now is there's a pushback against this colonizing way of thinking about global concepts, okay? And this is what I think our students need to be able to understand, okay? That because, whereas before, it's like, okay, there's only one way of looking at this. This is it. When we start to look at our environment, for example, as an environmental scientist, okay, I was taught to look at the environment as living and non-living. Yep. It was only when I started to work with indigenous peoples that I realized, no, there's another way of looking at the environment. So this is where I'm saying it's important for us to understand that there are global thinking. It doesn't mean we embrace it, okay? It's important for us to so this is so part of that, and I think the capacity to be able to think globally does not reduce the capacity to critique from a local perspective. Because our reality is the local. But our local now is very much influenced by the global. So unless we also understand what they're trying to do, as you said, or trying to impose, or in that colonial way of thinking, then we're not able to respond critically and engage in the same way that you said, I am thinking that this is not. There is something that is not balanced. There is something that is not true because they themselves contradict what they're trying to do. That's one. And the other thing I think is for us to be able to see that, because when we speak also of countries, we cannot generalize or homogenize. There are certain leaders who profess different things that they want their country to be able to see. But I think part of that, I think if we understand the principles, and this is where the second aspect of global citizenship, what are the principles? And I think if my Indonesian studies, there's this Panchaksila, there's this, is it?
Yep.
There's these five?
Correct.
The five core principles. I apologize, I studied Bahasa for a year and a half. I was hoping to do my research in Indonesia.
It's 5 principles, yeah.
Yeah, seen it? So there are 5 principles. So how do these principles relate back? So these are principles that are developed within. And so if this is the commitment of the government, this is the commitment, and again, our country is not the government. Our government are our leaders, but our country is us. We are the people. No? And so how do we therefore understand these principles? Okay, being born in the Philippines, a lot of those principles were very Catholic. So I grew up, I thought that was the only religion in the world before I realized, no, there are many other religions, you know. But at the same time, it's understanding where you come from, your upbringing, and having moved and studied to Australia, I broadened my understanding of the world. I broadened my understanding. So and this is an exact demonstration of what I mean by becoming global citizens. You don't just learn to be, you learn to become. And just as you thought I understood it, there's another problem that I need to address. And so part of what you say, Pak, is really how do we equip our students to recognize these tensions and for them to be able to take positions, informed positions, but also positions that come from the gut, from the feeling of the principles, and be able to do something about this.
Thank you, Robbie. That's very clear now. I would like to ask the audience, may I have some question or comment, please? And I have the participants already with us, or somebody in the room to ask questions or comments or clarification to Robbie while he's still with us. Ayo yang mau tanya. Mana Bu Isti? Arifa, any question? Come on, I would like to invite audience in the room here or participants online. Want to ask some questions, clarification or comments to Robbie?
Maybe I am.
Can you just raise your hand so I can see your video right on the top left? Raise your hand, please. You may just click on the react. Yep, thank you. Yep, yeah, you are clapping. That's all right. Okay, Ahmad Syaifuddin Ihsans. Okay, just directly to Robbie, Ahmad Syaifuddin. Time's for you.
Okay. Thank you for the time. I think the most problem in the global citizenship, it is what is the important is 4.0 is more and more elementary school children. We are teacher in Indonesia are abusing the media, like the children bullying their friends and recording on their cell phone and degrading moral value and local culture in Indonesia. This is, I think, the problems. Why? I think it is possible to be shocked me or us by such rapid globalization. This is the problem, I think. Okay, thanks.
So enough, Syaifuddin. Robbie, can you get the points being asked by Ahmad Syaifuddin?
I will try to see. Okay, so I think part of your question is around the younger children in terms of the primary school. Okay, where technology has become faster in terms of the influence of technology, is faster than we can catch up with values, critical thinking. You know, and I think. And you're right, very right. How do we? I mean, one, it's important. First is the recognition that often our students learn technology faster than we did. Like I have to speak for myself. Okay, I sometimes have to ask my students, how did this happen? Because so they're more technological savvy than we are. So how do we therefore? While we know the values and principles, because of our maturity and experience, they're still looking at the technology as if the technology was just technology. Technology has values in it. Technology has, so as you said, they bully, they take pictures without, So part of that is, this is where I think as educators, we need to be very quick to respond and change. The problem is, the most difficult thing to change in our society often is the education system. It takes long for the education system to change. Curriculum takes long. And this is why it's important for teachers to be empowered and to be given, okay, this is what we're trying to teach. Now, what is it that you are faced in your class? When you're faced in your class with the situation, how do we deal with it? Okay? And so I think let us equip teachers to be able to respond more than to be able to teach to the book. Okay, and this is where it's important. Teachers, because this is a problem also here in Australia, and I know in the Philippines, is that the teacher says, "Oh, that's not in the curriculum." Well, it's not in the curriculum, but that's what's happening in life. What do you do? Do you ignore it?
So heavy, so heavy. Wow. Difficult for teacher in the local culture.
Yes, because we have trained the teachers to become, particularly you teach this, okay? Teach content rather than teach. So this is the difference between the content and the values that the teachers are trying to teach. Okay, and I think if the teachers know that, look, you teach not to the test, you teach not to the book, you teach to the life of the students. And if something is happening in the classroom, we need to be able to empower the teachers to be able to say, what will I do with this situation? Okay, and so this is the thing, and it's harder. It was easier to teach before because you had the curriculum to follow. Now, the curriculum is live. The curriculum is every day. The news arrives very quickly. The news might arrive to the students before they arrive to us. And the student asks the question, oh, did that happen already? Wait, I don't know. And so they're quicker. And so therefore, we need to be able to make the teachers, what they say, agile, nimble, responsive, adaptive. So those are qualities that we need our teachers to become. It's more difficult, I know. It's more difficult, but I think the students will respect us better if they start to see that we as teachers are also part of this process of learning with them. Okay, we can no longer just be teaching them, because again, we are changing the world one day at a time together. Okay, and so what does that mean for education? We need to change education as well and be more responsive.
All right, Robbie, thanks very much. It's so clear, and your answer to to Ahmad is really clear. I could really understand what you'd like to convince him about your presentation. Yes, we stick to the rule that we are global citizens. For the moment, Robbie, we would like to have you stay in there, don't go away. Maybe we come back to you after we have our second presenter. I can see right now on the top right of my windows is Harry Harun Beher from Frankfurt University. Harry, could you hear me and see my video?
I see you and I hear you clearly.
Thank you very much, Harry. I'm going to be your moderator. So I would like to have you to talk about you have your slides already been sent to the organizer, and we would like you to have presented to us right now. So Professor Harry Harun Beher would like to talk about Islamic religious education in Germany, which actually been applied and implemented from public school to high school to secondary level. So Harry, time is for you. I would like to have like 20 to 30 minutes of presentations, then be followed by some comments or questions. Harry, time for you.
Okay. Okay, I hope you can see my slide.
Yes, we can have it over here in Jogja.
Fine. It's early morning here. My kids are getting ready for school. I thank you for the invitation. I was prepared to talk in Bahasa. Is it a problem?
No, it's all right. It's all right.
Okay, so maybe once in a while I can switch to English if necessary. Jadi saya akan bicara tentang KIS. KIS bukan dalam arti cium, tapi dalam arti kuliah Islam di sekolah umum menengah atas di Jerman. Bentar, ini dia. Kuliah Islam di sekolah umum berarti bahwa ini KIS adalah mata pelajaran dari tingkat SD sampai tingkat menengah atas. Dan di Jerman ada juga sekolah yang melebihi SMA, itu namanya gymnasium sampai ke usia 18. Rata-rata mata pelajarannya itu mengundang 2 jam instruksi per minggu. Itu nggak banyak dibandingkan dengan matematika atau bahasa atau ilmu pengetahuan alam. Tapi adanya di sekolah dalam arti spiritual education, kalau sesuai dengan kehendak murid dan orang tuanya. Jadi itu bukan compulsory tapi pilihan. Bisa misalnya pilih etika atau filosofi daripada agama. Itu bebas dipilih. Jadi nggak ada paksaan mengikuti pelajaran agama di sekolah umum, tapi itu disediakan. Dan juga oleh banyak murid digunakan. Boleh dibilang ya sekitar 2/3 dari murid ikut mata pelajaran agama, Kristen, Islam atau agama yang lain, dan 1/3 dari muridnya pindah ke etika atau filsafat. Perlu diketahui bahwa sekolah disusun dan diatur oleh 16 provinsi Jerman tanpa ada kerangka pendidikan atau kurikulum nasional. Jadi itu terserah provinsinya. Misalnya saya hidupnya di Bavaria, tapi kerja di Hesse, di Frankfurt. Jadi ada perbedaan di antara dua provinsi, misalnya dalam bentuk kurikulum atau dalam bentuk teacher trainingnya dan seterusnya. Itu berlaku untuk semua mata pelajaran, bukan untuk agama saja. Jadi selalu ada kurikulum regional atau kurikulum provinsi dan tidak ada kerangka nasional. Perlu berdasarkan mengajar, harus kuliah yang mau mengajar menjadi guru, harus kuliah perguruan tinggi di universitas, jadi nggak ada akademi swasta atau jaluran samping. Dasar kuliahnya dipilih dari bidang psikologi, sosiologi, dan ilmu pendidikan. Juga kalau misalnya hanya mengajar agama, itu sama gitu dasarnya. Ditambah pilihan 3 mata pelajaran, yang harus ditentukan penekanan utama misalnya kimia, olahraga dan agama atau bahasa atau sastra atau matematika. Jadi mata pelajaran agama sebagai inti profesi saya bisa dipilih sebagai tambahan ada mata pelajaran yang lain atau petunjuk yang lain. Perlu diketahui juga bahwa struktur sosial Islam di Jerman berbeda misalnya dibandingkan dengan Indonesia. Dari jumlah kira-kira 80 juta penduduk di Jerman adalah 5 juta penduduk Muslim, jadi kurang lebih 6%. Itu dinamakan minoritas. Ya. Kebanyakan dari mereka itu, dari Muslim itu, berasal sebagai generasi keempat dari tenaga kerja asing yang berasal dari Turki dan negara timur yang lain, ditambah pelari Muslim yang lari dari penghancuran negara mereka, misalnya Afghanistan, Iran, Suriah, Afrika. Struktur komunitas Islam, masjid-masjidnya mencerminkan keberagaman nasional, bahasa dan kebudayaan dari seluruh dunia. Jadi di Frankfurt misalnya ada lebih dari 50 masjid. Tapi bukan masjid saja, tapi ada beberapa masjid Turki, beberapa masjid Albania, masjid Bosnia, masjid Maroko, masjid Mesir, masjid Indonesia pun ada. Jadi perlu diketahui bahwa misalnya dalam bahasa, ya kalau hari Jumat atau bahasa sehari-hari pergaulan dari komunitas, masih ada itu bahasanya yang berasal dari negara-negara yang dulu jadi khutbahnya dalam bahasa Turki atau dalam bahasa Arab atau dalam bahasa negeri-negeri Afrika dan selainnya dan seterusnya. Selalu ditambah bahasa Jerman. Jadi misalnya yang namanya youth work atau pergaulan di antara remaja di masjid itu, dan itu penting karena remaja itu adalah target group dari KIS di sekolah. Mereka sudah sedikit awam tentang bahasa-bahasa ibu yang masing-masing. Misalnya 50% fasih Turki dan 50% fasih Jerman. Jadi bahasa mereka campur gitu, ya, dalam pergaulan sehari-hari di sekolah menggunakan bahasa Jerman, kan kalau di rumah misalnya ngobrol Turki. Jadi kesulitannya kadang-kadang untuk anak-anak itu adalah bahwa bahasa yang presentasikan agama Islam yang berasal dari rumah tangga menggunakan bahasa Turki. Jadi itu perlu belajar translation prosesnya di antara bahasa pertama dan bahasa kedua dalam masalah agama. Jadi kuliah Islam Jerman di sekolah umum terpaksa dan harus dan pilihan utama menggunakan bahasa Jerman. Jadi tidak ada KIS dalam bahasa lain selain bahasa Jerman. Selain ini, paksaan bahasa, KIS memperhitungkan pluralitas bermacam identitas Muslim di Jerman. Nah, Undang-Undang Dasar di Jerman mengatur KIS dan pelajaran agama dalam arti kata res mixta, itu bahasa Jerman, maksudnya urusan bersama. Itu letaknya di artikel 4 dan artikel 7 pasal 3, bahwa selain kebebasan kepercayaan individual dan juga kebebasan ketidakkepercayaan, harus ada pilihan petunjuk agama di sekolah umum. Jadi itu hak asasi anak. Undang-Undang Dasar Jerman alamatkan pendidikan agama ketiga pihak serta tugaskan mereka untuk kerjasama. Itu adalah rumah, itu tanggung jawab orang tua. Ya, mereka kalau anaknya masih kecil tingkat SD, mereka itu memutuskan apa anaknya ikut agama atau ikut etika. Ya. Dengan usia 14, anaknya boleh pilih sendiri. Jadi dia boleh atas putusan sendiri, boleh masuk keluar pelajaran agama dan pindah ke filsafat atau keluar dari filsafat pindah ke agama. Dari keduanya itu komunitas agama, atas komunitas agama tanggung jawabnya. Itu di sini dinamakan masjid atau gereja. Dalam bahasa Jerman, kata gereja itu berlaku untuk segala agama. Jadi tempel dari Buddhis atau Hindu, masjid dari kelompok Islam, gereja dari masing bermacam kelompok Kristen itu dinamakan gereja. Ya. Saya ganti dengan kata masjid biar jadi jelas apa dimaksudkan di sini. Itu tanggung jawabnya komunitas. Dan yang ketiga, tanggung jawabnya negeri atau negara, itu sekolah umum. Jadi sebaiknya kalau misalnya guru agama di sekolah ada pergaulan dekat dengan rumah tangga anaknya dan juga dengan komunitasnya. Biar gitu tidak pada akhirnya ada 3 macam pelajaran atau ajaran atau bacaan agama yang jauh berbeda di antara rumah, masjid dan negara. Jadi itu hendak atau intensi Undang-Undang Dasar Jerman ada itu pekerjaan kebersamaan itu biar agama punya tempat yang tentu dan yang berhak di tengah sivilitas dan komunitas di negeri Jerman. Jadi itu bukan negara sekuler, ya. Jadi boleh bilang itu setengah sekuler. Dalam bahasa Jerman dinamakan itu hinkende Säkularität. Maksudnya sekuler tapi dengan ada ketersambung dengan masalah agama, karena agama pada dasar dianggap penting untuk kemajuan negeri sesuai dengan idenya dan dasar pikirannya Undang-Undang Dasar. Yang sudah sedikit berbeda dengan konsensus umum hari ini, karena Undang-Undang Dasar itu berasal dari tahun 1948. Nah, sekarang 22.3. Jadi sekarang sudah terasa ada konsensus lawan agama di sekolah. Banyak ditanyakan di diskusi apa masih perlu harus ada pelajaran agama di sekolah, bagaimana kalau di rumah saja atau di masjid. Bagaimana apa kita anggap agamanya terlalu penting misalnya dibandingkan dengan ekonomi atau mata pelajaran yang lain. Itu diskusi. Nah, segitiga itu resmiksta rumah masjid negara itu bacaan konservatif. Bacaan progresif yang berdasar di penelitian remaja dari universitas saya. Segitiga itu yang mempengaruhi pikiran dan perasaan rohani dan beragamaan sedikit berbeda. Misalnya social media lebih penting dari pendidikan rumah dari segi remaja. Remaja itu tadi Robi katakan global citizens, itu penting sekali diperhatikan bahwa tadi dibahas oleh Robi. Kami mengadakan penelitian tentang identitas beragamaan remaja Islam dan kelihatan sekali bahwa mereka anggap dirinya sendiri sebagai global Muslims. Jadi itu namakan meta identity, kita namakan itu global peers. Jadi biarpun ada 50 masjid yang bermacam nasionalitas di Frankfurt, di antara remaja perasaannya dan kesadarannya berbeda dibandingkan dengan orang tuanya mereka. Mereka angkat diri sendiri sebagai saya remaja, saya warga negara Jerman walaupun keturunan asing, saya beragama Islam itu lebih penting daripada keturunan orang tua saya atau bahasa pertama itu dari negara asal. Yang ketiga adalah artificial intelligence atau ChatGPT yang jadi lebih penting kalau misalnya remaja tanya kepada ChatGPT, apa artinya itu jihad? Dan dia diberi oleh artificial intelligence, dia diberi jawabannya lain. Misalnya kalau tanya kepada imam di masjid atau papa atau ibu di rumah atau guru agama di sekolah. Ya, jadi kita harus sadar dan perhatikan pada masa depan bahwa sumber-sumber pengaruhan rohani tidak at first place akan berasal dari rumah masjid atau negara, tetapi dari dunia digital world. Profil petunjuk agama sesuai dengan hukum Jerman itu bukan undang-undang dasar saja, tapi misalnya juga hukum sekolah atau hukum provinsi harus sesuai dengan pertama jiwa agama. Maksudnya pertama belajar agama, kedua belajar tentang agama. Ya, itu spiritual education berbeda dengan religious education. Keduanya harus ada. Jadi harus adanya pendekatan ke agama dirinya sendiri dan juga harus ada kebebasannya untuk menjauhkan diri dari inti mata pelajaran at a distance biar jadi melebihi kemampuan dirinya sendiri untuk mengerti apa ini dibahas di KIS ini. Kedua, itu KIS adalah pendidikan spiritual atas dasar Undang-Undang Dasar artikel 7 pasal 3 yang berkata sesuai dengan prinsip dan ajaran dasar kelompok agama yang masing. Ketiga, yang siapapun mau mengajar harus sesuai dengan izin mengajar yang diberi oleh pimpinan kelompok agama. Dan keempat, KIS Islam ini harus sesuai dengan sistematik agama, misalnya usuluddin, akidah, fiqh, lughah, syariah, Quran, hadis, tafsir, dan selain. Nah, ini ada dalam kurikulum. Jadi kurikulum itu diciptakan oleh ahli-ahli Islam di universitas di Jerman, misalnya saya. Dan dalam perguruan tinggi teacher training itu ada beberapa modul yang itu berbentuk ini sistematika agama dalam arti teologi. Jadi harus tamat teologi dan pendidikan untuk menjadi guru Islam. Ini matriks kompetensi pusat keterampilan kemampuan pengajaran perguruan atas 4 tingkat. Yang pertama tingkat tindakan, maksudnya profesi pelaksanaan pengajaran dan pendidikan dalam institusi selain rumah tangga atau masjid. To be a good teacher gitu. Itu dapat 4 titik karena itu gampang dialamatkan dalam pengajaran perguruan tinggi. It's easy ya. Ini inti utama dari teacher training ini. Yang kedua tingkat ilmu. Pengetahuan ilmiah yang dapat diandalkan sesuai dengan ilmu yang diakui dalam arti ini Islamic Studies. Nah itu juga bisa dialamatkan di universitas tapi tidak sepenuhnya. Jadi kalau saya nggak pernah dalam kehidupannya ilmu agama ini cukup untuk mengajar. Jadi teachernya atau gurunya sendirinya adalah dalam proses belajar bersama muridnya sepanjang usia dan umur. Yang ketiga itu tingkat kepribadian. Itu lebih lemah dibandingkan dengan tindak-tindakan dalam arti professionalization. Tapi lebih penting dari yang pertama dan kedua itu karena pendirian guru ini to be a good teacher yang tadi dikatakan oleh Robbie tidak bisa dicapaikan dengan apa ada di kurikulum tapi apa ada dalam otak dan hati saya gitu. Nah keempatnya tingkat rohani ini paling lemah dari segi teacher training itu tapi paling kuat untuk mengajar agama itu. Maksudnya pendirian keagamaan, kepercayaan dan kemanusiaan gurunya sendiri. Jadi 4 tingkat ini harus berkomunikasi dan harus ketersambung dalam teacher training. Jadi harus ada kurikulum untuk teacher training selain kurikulum di sekolah yang juga kami sudah ciptakan untuk universitas saya. Nah, kalau ini dilihat dari segi remaja, kami bisa menggambarkan dari penelitian kami tingkat orientasi dunia hidup pemuda muslim di Jerman atas 4 tingkat. Yang pertama jasadi, physical. Nah itu orientasi identitas, perasaan dan satuan di antara pandangan diri dan bentuk badan dan kesehatan sendiri. Yang kedua budaya, cultural itu, simpati terhadap cabang kebudayaan dan jaringan sosial alternatif, kemajuan daripada penularan kultural termasuk perubahan dan kemajuan agama Islam. Jadi lebih intelektual, lebih efektif, lebih spiritual, lebih mengarah ke masa depan daripada masa belakang. Yang ketiga adalah tingkat kritis atau intelektual, kewaspadaan cerdas dan perundingan otoritas, kehendak dan kemampuan putusan sendiri. Ya, dan keempat, rohani atau cosmic homeland. Itu saya namakan kampung halaman hati. Percobaan diri secara ceria, kognitif, emosional, spiritual, estetik, etikal. Nah, kalau 4 tingkat ini berkomunikasi, kami bisa menggambarkan apa itu orientasi spiritual atau orientasi beragamaan. Selain Islam juga di luar agama. Jadi anak-anak yang tidak beragama juga mengorientasi dirinya sendiri terhadap dunia hidup dalam arti spiritual di atas 4 tingkat ini. Jadi ada similar to religion reaksi di antara remaja biarpun mereka tidak beragama. Nah, sifat korespondensi ini dengan ini mengkorespondenkan sifat bimbingan yang diharapkan oleh pemuda. Kami menanyakan kepada remaja, what is your favorite religious teacher? Bagaimana kamu menggambarkan imam di masjid atau guru agama di sekolah atau tokoh Islam gitu ya sebagai public intellectual. Nah, kami bisa menggunakan juga 3 tingkat ini, kepintaran, pendirian, dan pergaulan. Sesuai dengan kepintaran, maksud remaja itu harus terdidik umum dan bukan agama saja, harus banyak membaca, harus profesional, pintar, intelektual, tercermin, mampu mengkritik dan dikritik sendiri, ajar secara analitis dan selainnya. Yang kedua, pendirian, kebijaksanaannya dapat dipercayai, percaya diri, percaya kepada Tuhan, sungguh jujur, adil, bertanggung jawab, dan selain. Dalam arti pergaulan, mudah didekati, sopan dengan penuh kasih sayang, berempati, setia, kuat, sederhana, santai, tenang, dan suka tertawa. Maaf, ada kesalahan titik di sini. Nah, itu juga mempengaruhi kurikulum perguruan tinggi. Kalau kita tahu ini ekspektasi dan harapan remaja terhadap gurunya, bagaimana bisa kita menerjemahkan harapan ini ke sejenis kurikulum atau susunan struktur perguruan tinggi untuk menjadi guru agama. Ini lagi dalam proses under construction, so to say. Profil pembaharuan dengan ini jadi di antara harapan remaja dan bentuk psikologis rohani dan jasadi dan jasmani guru-guru adalah juga profil mata pelajaran sendiri dalam arti inovatif. Maksudnya profil yang bisa mengalamatkan kebutuhan pemuda yang tersebut. Nah, yang ini ya ingat. Kedua, secara mendasar dan menyeluruh, jadi bukan superficial tapi benar-benar berlaku. Ketiga, sebagai tambahan terhadap tradisi konsensus kebudayaan atau kebiasaan. Ingat ya, kalau itu maksudnya dalam arti budaya, nah progression itu harapan orang tua. Nah, saya mau anak saya jadi muslim yang baik atau anak soleh gitu, sholat dan lain-lainnya, pakai kerudung atau apa aja ya. Nah, remaja itu sendiri bilang, ya saya tahu itu harapan ibu saya, tapi saya punya gambaran dan kehendak yang lain. Ya, saya mau Islamnya lebih intelektual, yang ada kemampuan berdiskusi. Nah, ini dia yang harus yang memaksakan kami atau mengundang kami untuk menggambarkan, ciptakan kurikulum Islam yang dekonstruktif dan diskursif. Saya udah hampir sebentar lagi ya. Masih ada waktu sedikit. Nah, maksudnya pembaharuan inovatif adalah juga tergantung atau mengandung dekonstruksi identitas agamaan. Nah, kami menghadapkan keturkian Islam, ke Araban, ke Indonesiaan, ke Jermaan, ke Eropaan, ke Baratan, ke Global Northan, Global Southan, ke kulit hitaman, ke apa sajaan mengenai persepsi interseksional. Itu semuanya berhak dalam hak asasi manusia untuk mengikuti kultur. Tapi dalam arti Islam, kami harus merubahkan persepsi al-muwatin as-salih, jadi anggota kelompok sosial, ke al-insan as-salih, menjadi manusia Muslim yang dapat dilihat di tengah sosietas Jerman sebagai Muslim, bukan sebagai Turki, sebagai Muslim bukan sebagai Arab, sebagai Muslim bukan sebagai apa saja. Jadi Islam sebagai kemanusiaan melebihi keagamaan saya. Ini salah satu urusan, salah satu putusan bagaimana kami mengarahkan pada dasar ajaran Islam kalau kita mengajar Islam di sekolah umum. Islam yang mana? Bagaimana kita menggambarkan Islam, lihat pluralitas Islam di seluruh dunia. Anda tahu sendiri di Indonesia saja sudah beberapa aliran dan bacaan Islam yang ada. Bayangin saja di Jerman minoritas 5 juta Muslim dan itu pluralitas melebihi pluralitas Islam di seluruh dunia di negara Islam yang lain. Itu juga mengandung potensial untuk konflik. Jadi konflik resolution di antara golongan Muslim, di antara golongan nasional, di antara grup Muslim dan society itu ada salah satu core dari KIS. Itu saya bolos. Nah, profil pembaharuan inovatif juga berarti bahwa penentuan di antara masa kemarin, hadiah dan depan harus menjadi topik dalam KIS. Misalnya dari kita mengajar mengenai teks, maksudnya body of literature, Quran, hadis, sastra, tafsir dan lain, harus juga ada pendekatan dari approach-nya, dari spirit-nya. Di samping tradisi, kebiasaan, everyday fiqh dan selainnya, harus juga lihat situasi manusia pada masa hadiah dan depan. Dan dari pendekatan kolektif, Islam Muslim seperti kelompok harus juga lihat hak individu dan hak asasi tiap-tiap individu Muslim, karena kebebasan kepercayaan dari pasal 4 Undang-Undang Dasar tidak berlaku untuk komunitas, tapi untuk individu. Jadi saya punya kebebasan, kepercayaan di sisi negeri dan di sisi komunitas dan religious group saya sendiri. Ya? Jadi it's individual right. Nah itu harus dibahas dalam KIS juga. Nah, juga itu mempengaruhi cara membaca Quran secara harfiah, literal, mencerminkan allegorical, menceritakan epical, lyrical atau narrative, mengkritik, misalnya critical reading of Quran, bacaan yang bermaksud, intentional reading of Quran, atau yang berharap, anecdotal reading of Quran. It's my last slide and I'm finished. Pada dasar, dengan KIS ini kami yang mengurus itu membalas atau juga berusaha untuk membalas kebencian di antara manusia, kekerasan, kerugian, kesombongan kultural dan pada akhir kekecewaan dalam dan luar agama sesuai dengan surat 68 wala tuti' kulla halafin hamazin masya'in binamim mana'in lil khairi mu'tadin thim utulim ba'da dhalika zalim. Jadi anda lihat bahwa walaupun saya mengajar dan kerja di Universitas Umum untuk mendasarkan susunan kerangka program kurikulum, kami juga menggunakan teks dalam tradisi kita, ini contohnya dari Quran, untuk menggambarkan profil kehendak dan intensi petunjuk agama Islam di sekolah menengah atas. Sekian dulu saya selesai. Thanks for your inclined ears. Harap jadi sedikit jelas what we are doing here in Germany.
Who are you describing with the verses of 68, Harry? From your last slide, who are they?
Okay. I think I didn't get you. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just wondering that you quoting the Quran first, and you're describing that don't follow somebody who are blah, 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 and then I'm asking you, who are they actually? Who are you referring to?
Well, maybe to some of the people you had in mind, Zain, when you answered Robbie.
Thank you, Harry. I know what you mean.
You know, Germany also imposes its values on its own citizens and not only on other countries.
Harry, before I let audience ask some questions or comments on your presentation, I would like to ask you first. I've been following your slide step by step, your presentation from the beginning up to the end. I'm just wondering actually that you got 16 provinces. Each are free to implement Islamic religious teaching in their own province without any national curriculum. Am I correct to say that?
Yes.
Yep. Now, I'm just wondering actually, the first speaker is talking about a global citizen. Now you are talking about global Islam.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, to some extent, are there any conflicts between, among each of 16 provinces in practicing Islamic religious teaching at their school, from public school, from up to the high school, as you said in your presentation? I mean, talking about global Islam, like what we are experiencing in Indonesia, there are some sections of society who would like to have a global ummah, who would like to have a khilafah instead of NKRI, instead of Republik Indonesia. And I'm just wondering if what you mean by global Islam, which you said in your presentation that there could be like some differences between children and their parents, where their parent is more oriented towards where they are from, Turkey, or from Algeria, Albania, from Indonesia, while the children born in there, they are following like Islam, as you suggested, like in line with what actually the ideology of the country has it, which is Germany. My question is, how could you manage a conflict between global Islam as you presume it already in your presentation, and with each of Islam within each of 16 provinces?
This is a misunderstanding. I didn't talk about global
All
Islam.
right.
I talked about globalized identities of young Muslims. And this is something we have in our research. It's not an ideological argument, it's a scientific argument. So what we do is that we advise our political leaders. I'm in a national board, a national advisory board at the Chancellor's office, that we assign, and I'm not the only one, we as scientists advise the German government to implement these and these things in Islamic education. For example, the German government asks us to implement Islamic education as prevention against Islamist terrorism and extremism. So we refuse this because we say this has no place in spiritual education. It's a task of the whole school and not only of Islamic education. And then we have chances to correct this security thing by state government and to prevent further ideologization of Islamic education. But ideology is a part of young people's orientation. They always develop some sort of ideologies, with or without religion. So we have to address this. This is what I mean with these 4 reference points of juvenile orientation. So it is one among others. So here I follow Benjamin Barber. Benjamin Barber, he expressed his idea, think global, act local. So we have to bring together the global perspective. A global perspective is, for example, climate change. You cannot address climate change only in an Albanian community. You have to need an idea for globalized processes, with or without Islam, I don't care, you know. But you can't exclude Islam from global processes. I'm not talking about Islamic State and global Khalifa and so. But I think that Fazlur Rahman's idea of science as a basis of global Muslim, inter-Muslim communication is a sound basis for future change. And let me tell you one thing. If you want to change situation, you need radicalism. It is necessary, but the radicalism must be constructive and not destructive. So the German government would say, we are against all forms of radicalism. We say, okay, you want us to be sleeping sheep? Then we don't have to teach Islam in public schools. What do you want? You want young citizens who change the situation, or you want sleeping sheep? And this is a very, very tough discussion, and we discuss it on the issue of KISS, but it refers to the whole school system. This is our chance, by innovating Islamic teaching, to innovate other branches of public schools. This is why I am not an Islamic scientist, I'm an educational scientist with focus on Islam. Thank you. Sein Mikronya, your micro is off.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's my mic, yeah. Thank you very much, Harry.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, it's so clear. Yeah, just wonderful actually, because we never expected that Germany, such industrialized country, we call it here negara sekuler, but actually you are free to have and implement and teach Islamic religious education, even from public school up to high school. It's wonderful.
Yes.
I would like to ask.
I became Muslim. I became Muslim in 1980 in Jakarta, and I was a pupil of SMA 4 Plus in Cililitan. So I embraced Islam in Masjid Agung Al-Azhar in April 1980, Jakarta.
Masya Allah, subhanallah, alhamdulillah, luar biasa, extraordinary, Hari. And that's why I'm just wondering, in the end of your presentations, you are reciting Quran in such a way that it's very good. The tajweed, the makharijul huruf, you understand it well and you say it correctly in Arabic. Thank you. I would like to ask audience and some others to ask question or some comments, please. Ibu Naima. All right, a lady from our faculty would like to have some comment or question to you, Hari.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much for Mr. Professor Dr. Harry Harun Beth. Ya, kok udah kelihatan ya? Okay. Well, we are surprised to listen you speaking Indonesian very well, Mr. Harun, and congratulations for you that you are Muslim, and we are very happy to hear all your speaking, your presentation today. Yeah, Mr. Harun, yeah. You can speak Indonesian very well, yeah. We are very happy to we are enjoying your presentation today, and you can speak Arabic very well too. Yeah, we are very happy to listen it. Yeah, Mr. Harun, let me know. Can you explain about the condition or the freedom in doing worship for Muslim society in German? Is it quite different from Indonesian, Muslim Indonesian worship in Indonesian? Okay, Mr. Harun, those ones, yeah, I surprised that your presentation is very good concerning to Indonesian Islamic religious, yeah, for Muslim who worship in Germans, and let me know how the freedom in doing worship for Muslim society in German. Thank you. For
Yes.
All right, back to you, Harry.
Yeah, Naima, thank you. Thank you. Yes, it's an ongoing development. Muslims, a lot of Muslims came here in the 1960s as workers from Turkey and other countries. Religion was not in their mind. So for them, religion became more and more important the longer they stayed as part of their cultural heritage. So some what you call worship, like praying or learning Quran in the mosque or wearing kurudung, was not part of the program in the 60s and 70s. It developed later when more Muslim awareness came in the second and third generation, because they experienced discrimination by the German society against their foreign culture. And until today, Islamic religious education in public schools, or Friday prayers, or public adhan, or like an Islamic program in the radio or TV, or Islamic dress, is regarded as foreign culture. It's still a conflictory topic between so-called German or Western or European or enlightened culture or secular living habits on the one side, on the other side, what Edward Said called orientalization of people, you see. And this is what happened.
Harry, we can hear you, Harry.
Can you hear me?
Nah,
now?
that's all right now. Can
Okay.
you say it
Okay.
again?
So the topic is that we still face a lot of cultural discriminations against Muslim according to their habits, the way they dress, and what they do. And I am member of a research board on research on discrimination against Muslims in Germany. And we released this report to the German government. It's the biggest survey ever done in a Western country, even bigger than John Esposito's Islamicity reports, which were done by Gallup in New York. It has more than 500 pages, and it shows discrimination in the schools, in the kindergartens, in the public transport, in the communal offices, in the police, in the hospitals, and so on. Not only against Muslim patients, but against Muslim doctors. So this is part of the growing unrest among our young Muslims, that they feel being discriminated against, and they address it to the teachers in school, and they want to know, is Islam, will it help me? Will religion help me to overcome discrimination? So will it give me power? Or will it weaken me? Will Islam be a problem in my further career, in my job life? So this is a very, very intensive situation for our young Muslim girls and boys. And even when they come from parents who don't practice religion, they are only Muslim KTP, you know. But when they're in school, they're being addressed as Muslims by teachers. They say, "Oh, Ramadan is coming. How is Ramadan in your home? Because someone has a dark hair and has an Arabic name and is being read as a Muslim." It even happens to Christians from Arab countries that their German teachers address them as Muslims. Yes. So he says, Saleh Abdurrahman, you must be a Muslim. No, I'm a Christian from Syria. My name is Saleh Abdurrahman, but I'm Christian. So this is the stupid German teachers who think they have this cartoon-like image of the world. black people in Africa, Indians in America, Muslims in the Eastern world. It's so stupid, and it's getting worse because of political interpretation, because we have these right-wing movements and right-wing parties, because it's so easy, yeah, to exclude others because they are different. This othering is going on, and it's posing a lot of stress and constraint on our pupils are Muslims by origin. Sometimes they have another color of the skin. They have a second nationality, a different origin. They eat different things. So they are being discriminated against on different intersectional levels. And like I talked to one of my students, she's a black Muslim from Egypt with a scarf. As a black woman, she was discriminated in Egypt because we have a lot of racism in Islamic world. It's awful. Yeah? Muslims are very professional racists, let me tell you. And she comes to Germany. She's being discriminated against because she's a black woman in the Turkish mosque. They ask, who are you from? She says, what do you care where I'm from? I'm your sister in Islam, you know. And so we need a tough program for democratic education. Democratic education is the core frame for Islamic education in school. So Islamic education is a tool for democratization of the minds and hearts of our pupils. Although I am, as a Muslim, being addressed by my own colleagues in Frankfurt and University, oh, this is Hari Harun Beer, he's doing this extremist training. That's our fight. We have to fight. And we have to do it together with the Jewish minorities, with other migrant minorities, with other German minorities like poor people who are being discriminated against, sick people who are being discriminated against, mother-child families who have lost their fathers because of divorce are being discriminated against, and so on. Low-income structures, layers of society are being discriminated against, because right-wing policy is not only against foreigners, it's against the weak people in society. And this is how Muhammad was addressed when he was young. He was addressed as the prophet of the women, the poor, the children, and the slaves.
Yep.
So to our students, this history of Muhammad is very important for their identity formation.
Thank you, Hari. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Pak Ridwan, still any time for me to ask questions to
Yes, sure.
Professor
Okay.
Harun? Okay. First, Professor Harun, thank you very much for the presentation. You still give time for us, and your presentation is very wonderful. And the second one, I cannot speak speechless that you are Germany, but you speak English better than me. I am Indonesia. So thank you very much for Bahasa Indonesia. And my question, it is maybe very private questions. But in this case, I want to know,
Don't
what
say it
make
then.
you interest? What make you interest to take Islam as your religion? Why you
Yes.
choose Islam as a religion? Your
I was,
religion. And the
yes.
second one, you know well about.
Please, not two questions, only one. Only one first.
Only
okay?
one question.
Okay. Okay. It is very
Okay.
private actually. But thank you.
Yes, it's okay. In 1979, I came to Jakarta as a member of PPIRA American Field Service. And I went to SMA 4+, I lived in Cililitan. And my teman sebangku, what you call it, friend was Imam Budi Prasojo. We were in the same class. Maybe you know or heard of Imam Budi Prasojo. He was leading he's a social scientist from UI, and he is the leader of Yayasan Nurani Dunia. He was conflict resolution expert, and then the anti-communist chief inspector of Indonesian parliament. We are still close friends. And his father, Joko Prasojo, was an educational scientist, but because he was critical against Pak Harto, he had to stay at home all the time. So he had a lot of time for me. He worked for LP3ES at that time, and he wrote this beautiful book, Profil Pesantren. And Pak Joko was my ayah angkat. And when I was with him, I was not Muslim yet. We talked a lot about everything. He said, you need to understand Quran. So he gave his Quran in English language and English and Arabic to me. And I wanted to take it home from Kebayoran to Cililitan. But he said, okay, you cannot just carry the Quran, you need to have wudu. And I didn't know what it was. So he said, come to the bathroom, I'll show you wudu. And then I had wudu and I carried the Quran back to Cililitan. And with Maghrib, I started reading from Al-Fatiha until midnight, 6 hours, until I reached Surah Al-Kahf. But then I had to go to the toilet. And then I went to the toilet, but then I forgot how to take wudu. And I was so scared. So I wrapped the Quran in my sarung, and next day carried it back to Pak Harto, this Quran in a sarung. And I said, thank you for the book. And he said, why do you wrap it in your sarung? And I said, because I didn't want to touch it. I forgot how to take wudu. And then he said, you act like a Muslim. And then we came into talking about Islam. Actually, it was the reading of Quran that really brought me into Islam and the culture. It was Ramadan when I first came to Indonesia, and I liked fasting. From my home also, we had a fasting tradition, fasting for health. So Ramadan was easy for me, and I liked this everyday religious life that attracted me. You have to know my mom is Jewish, and my father is Catholic. I was brought up as a Jew and as a Catholic. I had both worlds. But at home, we were philosophers. My father is a journalist and my mother was a ballet dancer in the theater. So we talked about philosophy, politics and arts and literature, not religion. It had no place. But religion was a positive item in my family. So this is why maybe I had no prejudice against religion. And I did not become Muslim because I didn't like Christian or Jewish belief, but it was like my encounter with religion. He was my teacher. Then my second teacher was Muhammad Natsir from Dewan Dawa. Then my third teacher was Bang Imad from ITB in Bandung, Abdul Imaduddin. I invited him later to Germany. So he and then with Pak Habibie when he founded ICMI, and his son Ilham was in my town in Germany. We are still close friends. So we started pengajian and such things. And my first wife was from Minangkabau. So if your wife is from Minang, then you need to know your religion.
Thank you, Hari. That's then you earned one of the Muslim prophet Harun as your middle name, isn't that?
I was given when I embraced Islam. It was Buya Hamka was still alive, and in Azhar in this mosque, and then they said you need to carry a Muslim name back home. And they said, you are Harun, you are a bridge builder in your home country. Exactly. You have to talk to Pharaoh. Oh, I accepted this challenge.
Okay, thank you, Hari. Any others before we move to the third speaker?
Pak, I just have to apologize. I have to leave. I have to go to class.
Oh, yeah, you have a
Okay,
class. Okay, thanks very much, Robbie. Appreciate.
Excuse me. I will say thank you very much to Robbie. Robbie, you did good presentation. Thank you very much, Robbie. See you anytime. Thank you, Robbie. Yeah, terima kasih.
Good luck.
Okay.
All right, I'll let you go, Robbie. You have a class.
I miss you, Robbie. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, I just want to make sure if Martha back already with us. Martha from Lyon University.
Yes, I'm here. You can't see me?
Well, I can see your room, but not you.
Oh, really? The video is supposedly on, so I don't know. Huh, I don't know why that's true. Oh dear.
Must be
Well-
must be midnight somewhere over there, Martha.
Yes, I thought it was tomorrow, but that's okay. I'm here.
Yes, we hear your voice. We see your room, but we don't see you.
Well, that's okay. I'll put on
Maybe
my screen.
you can move your camera on a bit in the front of you.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
just
yeah,
a-
yeah, yeah. Now I can see a half of your face. Now it's full face. All right, okay.
You see. Okay. All right, I get it now. Just a second. I have this bigger screen, and it didn't have the.
That's good, Martha. We can see you now, full face.
So
All
the
right,
next
Martha. We move to you
I
right
have-
now as a third speaker. We already have Robbie and Harry talking about Islamic religious education in Germany. And back to you. We've been together actually several times in the seminar, and I'm Zain as a moderator, and would like to let you go with your presentations about, relationship about Pancasila and Islam, etc.
Yeah, just a second. I don't have the presentation on my desktop. So I have to figure out how to get to my desktop from the screen share.
All right.
Oh dear. I don't know if I've ever had to do this before.
Well, we have the paper actually over here. I can ask the operator to share screen, and then you may
Right.
have some clarification on the slide. Would you?
Right.
Alright.
Yes.
Mas, Mbak,
That'll-
itu papernya apa? Di share screen, tolong. Okay, the operator from Jogja gonna have a share screen on your slides, and you may talk about it and ask to move forward
Yeah.
or even backward, forward, backward.
That's good.
Arifa, ayo. Hang on,
Just-
give us a second.
I might be able to get this. I might be able to catch it now. Oh, here we go. I got it.
All right. Yes, we can see it now. All right, Martha, you may start it now.
It's nice to see Harry again.
Yep.
Haven't seen him in a while. Good. All right. Well, thank you for inviting me, and I see some old friends there, and oh dear, now what? Something else happened. Can you still hear me?
Yep. We can hear you, we can see you, we can see your slides. Okay.
You can see my slide? I can't.
Yes,
see
I
my
can see
slide.
your slide.
Oh gosh, I can't. Okay. Now there's something with the mouse. I don't know. It's kind of Murphy's Law here for a minute. We have to be patient, I guess. I cannot. Oh, okay. So. Oh,
Yeah,
boy,
that's
I can't.
Martha, please listen to me. Stay to your slide right now. Don't move anywhere. The way you move to the next slide is by clicking number 2, number 3, number 4. That then
Yeah,
we can see
but-
your presentation, and you yourself over there can see your slide.
I can't see anything.
Oh, you can't see anything now.
No. It's really weird. I've never had this happen before, but you know. Okay, let me see what this is.
Martha, we're gonna help you from here. Can you just close your share screen, please?
Oh boy, I've never had anything like this happen before. Well, all right. I think.
Martha, can I ask you to close your share screen?
I can't.
Move your cursor down using your mouse, all right? Yep, now you don't have your share screen. No worry, Martha, we're gonna have your share screen here from Jogja, from Indonesia. Sekarang panitia tolong tampilkan.
I've never had anything like this.
All right, Martha. Martha, we already have your slide over here, so can you see it right now, Martha?
Yes, I can.
All right, okay. Now you may speak on it, then we're gonna move your slide from one page to the others.
Okay, just a second. Okay, let me try one more thing because I have two different computers here. Let me see. Let me try one more thing, and I think this might do it. All right. Oh dear. Let me see. Okay.
Excuse me, Martha.
Yeah.
We have the slide already here at the screen.
Okay.
Being operated by the organizer. So you may start talking about it.
All right, let's go. All right, so in 2012, I got a Fulbright Teaching Fellowship to teach Western thought at UN Bandung. And my specialization is in ancient Greek philosophy and culture. When I read Panchasila, I instantly recognized how closely related the ideology is with Aristotle's view of political life. Greek culture emerged around 800 BC, and my research has focused on how all aspects of the culture were focused on motivating citizens to think like citizens, to get beyond loyalties to family and friends, and teach themselves and each other how to think like citizens, so they could develop and maintain a free and open, democratic society. All right, go to the next one. Can somebody switch it to the next one?
Next one. Yep. Next again. Yep.
Okay. Now my screen just has the first one. Does your screen have the second one? I guess so. Okay. All right. Here we go. So up in the right-hand corner in a tiny little box, I can see where you're at. Mostly, I'm just going to read what's already on the screen, so it's not going to be too difficult. So Panchasila number 1 is belief in God, religious pluralism. Aristotle argued for a first principle, a pure energeia, which is translated God. It's inclusive in the same way as the word God in Panchasila is. And principle 2 is humanitarianism. So Greek humanism and the humanistic foundations of all the ancient traditions is different from modern humanism. We need to integrate them. Religion and science should not be split apart. Principle 3, unity and plurality, nationalism. Aristotle argues that a political community is a plurality, not a unity. Number 4, next one. Next slide. Number 4, gaining wisdom through deliberation, or democracy. The word Aristotle used for the highest level of making good judgments about political affairs is the capacity to deliberate well. It's an art of deliberation. One's judgments are based on conversations, not deduced from principles. Principle number 5, the social contract, social justice. The society owes citizens opportunities to develop their natural capacities, get their basic needs, and then the citizens are obliged to use their talents and education to help out other citizens. So Aristotle's view was this obligation of the nobility, those with natural ability and opportunity, must use it for the well-being of everyone. Otherwise, he says, the laws are just a way to protect wicked people from harming each other, which is not political community at all. Okay, the next slide. The relevance of Aristotle's political philosophy. Today, democracies are in decline and authoritarian leaders are gaining power, either through force or elections. The story of how Greece developed a culture dedicated to educating citizens to take turns governing themselves and avoid needing powerful leaders to maintain social order is relevant for our time. This presentation focuses on the place of education in the arts throughout a child's formal education and throughout life for the preservation of democratic societies. Throughout the world, governments are funding STEM education more and more, as if it will make nations richer and therefore necessarily lead to a higher quality of life. This paper argues that we need to include the arts because arts education improves learning in all subjects. Okay, next slide. Research. No, the next slide is called recent research on the importance of, do you want to go back one? Okay. Recent research on the importance of the arts refers to Aristotle's model of flourishing. So a body of knowledge is being accumulated that shows the critical importance of a lifetime of engagement in artistic activities for the healthy development and preservation of individuals and societies. Neuroscience, trauma studies, biologists, social sciences, systems thinkers are coming to this conclusion using empirical studies. They all recognize Aristotle's notion of human flourishing as consistent with what they're discovering. This approach is compatible with the world's religious traditions and with indigenous culture. This approach can inform the Ministry of Religious Affairs in Indonesia because Indonesia is based on religious pluralism. Indonesia could become a leader in linking arts education to both religious and humanistic traditions. In this view, science and religion are not split. Okay, next slide. Spirituality, the arts, and Indonesian culture. This presentation focuses on the arts rather than religious doctrines because all of the traditions in Pancasila use the arts to connect their members with each other and with the universe. The different traditions have different definitions of the ultimate forces in human life. The mandate from heaven in Confucius, karma in Hinduism, liberation in Buddhism, God in Christianity, Allah in Islam, and nature or pantheism in indigenous traditions. However, they all use the arts to educate our emotions and to draw us together, so we work as a community to stay connected to each other and to the universe. They all use the arts to create a sustainable culture, our greatest collective need today. Next slide. A system of education for Indonesia. I know from personal experience that students at UN universities are familiar with the artistic expressions of citizens from other religious traditions. I've been to conferences that include indigenous dancing, music, and storytelling. And I miss it. I can't come back, and I'm very sorry about that. I just got dengue fever last time I was there, and I just decided I can't handle it. But I miss you all, and I wish I could be there. I hope this presentation will encourage the Ministry of Religious Affairs to be more deliberate about making sure students from kindergarten on are exposed to the storytelling, music, dance, visual arts, architecture, poetry, and all types of artistic expression from all of the official state traditions. In this way, they can recognize that we all have the same basic emotions, hopes, and fears. We all want experiences of unity with each other and the universe. We express this in different ways, but our underlying humanity is the same. This aspect of the educational system also connects to Panchasila number 2, humanitarianism number 3, number 4. And once we've made these connections, citizens will want to promote social justice and not discriminate against anyone based on their worldview. Okay, next one. Next slide. Okay, so these are the books that I reference. Your Brain on Art by neuroscientists. The Body Keeps the Score by a trauma specialist. The Myth of Normal, a doctor and a therapist. Looking for Spinoza, a prominent neuroscientist. Systems View of Life is Capra and Luigi, and then Ethics in Action for Sustainable Development by Jeffrey Sachs. He also is he works closely with interfaith organizations. And The Web of Meaning by Jeffrey Lent, who started his life as a real techie. He started the first online credit card company, and then he had a crisis in meaning, and he developed this much larger sense of purpose in life. Okay, next slide. Spirituality is the result of evolution, but it transcends physical networks. So Maximin and Ross envision the evolutionary process and the place of the arts in binding people together. It began with the invention of fire. Fire fostered new forms of coming together. We created stories, we sang, we danced. We developed myths and metaphors that passed on the moral and ethical values of the group. The activities we now call the arts began to take shape as an evolutionary priority to keep us alive. By stimulating the neurobiological reward system, these early gatherings helped to see the social value of community. Social connections improves cognitive function, lowers stress, diminishes depression. It allows our species to build empathy and understanding with each other. Next slide. The arts and community were wired to cooperate with each other. Mate's book, The Myth of Normal, describes all the mental health problems the West has created by valuing science at the expense of the arts and believing that pills can solve our problems, rather than that our problems arise from dysfunctional relationships. He advocates a return to ancient wisdom and to myths which are not anti-science. Until recently, myth was seen as a font of knowledge, a portal to spirit, one of the fundamentals of any healthy culture. It may well be that this original notion of myth can serve as a gateway into the world of healing, reconnecting us with eons of human wisdom and fostering a mindset where nothing's isolated happenstance, where meaning can come from any of life's raw materials. Next slide. Mythic thinking might help us enshrine and enact the scientific principles that our health derives from connection to our essence, to each other, and to a culture that honors these relationships. In the Poetics, Aristotle distinguishes between facts and history and myth and poetry. Mythos in Greek means story. For Aristotle, myths are more profound than history because they're stories that represent patterns in human affairs. The characters are not literal historical people, but types of people in types of situations, making types of decisions that lead to happiness or unhappiness. We still learn from these stories because we identify with the characters and situations. They're not bad science. They educate our emotions. I should say that they can be historical characters. They aren't necessarily, but they can be. Okay, next slide. Indonesian education and the world's mythological traditions. So myth is not an insult, right? It's not anti-science, it's a compliment, all right? All of the traditions in Pancasila include myths or stories about the moral icons of each tradition. So yes, the myths have historical characters, and sometimes they don't, they have the deities, but in the stories of Muhammad, Confucius, Buddha, Jesus, a Hindu guru, the stories told in indigenous societies describe patterns, types of things these people did in these types of situations. If children learn these stories from a young age, they will know immediately that there's a common humanity behind all these famous characters, and that we all should aspire to be more like all of them. We all aim for the same way of life, the same level of virtue and justice, because these people modeled the truth about human nature and the human condition, our relation to the natural world and to each other. Indonesia could lead the way in keeping these traditions alive without allowing them to be weaponized, as is happening all over the world today. Next slide. Developing community using all the arts. The early storytelling was combined with music and dance, drawing people together by stimulating many areas of the brain. Quote, humans, along with other social mammals, have specialized mirror neurons in our brains that allow us to synchronize with the actions and emotions of those close to us. When we watch someone flinch in pain or get up and dance, we experience in ourselves an embodied simulation of what is happening within their nervous systems. So this reference to dance brings to mind Muslims' tradition of prayer 5 times a day, binding them in a way that has been proven to create healthy communities. All the traditions in Pancasila also have rituals of movement. Hindu yoga, Buddhist meditation, bowing in ancient Confucianism, kneeling in Christianity, and many types of dancing in the indigenous traditions. Next slide. The link between the arts and our deeply social nature. Researchers emphasize over and over how profoundly social we are. Von der Kolk says everything about us, our brains, our minds, our bodies, is geared toward collaboration in social systems. This is our most powerful survival strategy, the key to our crisis, our survival as a species, and it is precisely this that breaks down in most forms of mental suffering. Then the neuroscientists say the same thing. So we can go to the next slide. I don't have to read the second part. Okay. Where social, where are we? I think you skipped, I think you skipped something. All right, so could you go to the next slide? Okay, we are also, inquisitive. I don't know. Where's that slide? Somehow. You can probably just read it. We are also inquisitive beings by nature. We're constantly learning, creating something new. So the biological reality of self-preservation leads us to virtue because in our, just a second. Just I don't know.
Is that
I
STEM
don't see-
education, Martha? We have a new slide right now.
The arts and STEM education. Okay, so that previous slide was just about that the arts link us to learning of all sorts. I suppose you probably read the slide. I don't know where the heck it is, but anyway, that's the link, is that if you educate children in the arts, they will also learn everything else better, including STEM. Does that make sense? If
Yep.
the arts is are what inspire us to seek knowledge and are at the emotional core of learning, it makes sense when Capra and Luigi say, throughout our intellectual history, artists have contributed significantly to the advancement of science whenever the study of patterns was in the forefront. Thus, the arts can be a powerful tool for teaching systematic thinking. In addition, the arts enhance the emotional dimension that is increasingly being recognized as an essential component of the learning process. If we try to force students to learn STEM subjects, but do not educate their emotions for social emotional skills and give them a sense of meaning and purpose that motivates them, students will either quit school or dedicate their talents to wealth and power, which will not enable a nation to flourish. If we teach them to connect STEM to sustainability and a flourishing society, they will do great things. Next one. The systems view, science and spirituality are integrated. So this book, The Systems View of Life, it's very comprehensive about the sciences are changing their paradigm from a reductionist modern view to a systems view. Science and spirituality are two major driving forces of civilization. The power of science and its application in technology is responsible for material and technological progress. Spirituality and its codification in religion, on the other hand, is responsible for the internal growth of individuals. Spiritual experience is an experience of mind and body as a unity. Moreover, this experience of unity transcends not only the separation of mind and body, but also the separation of self and world. The central awareness in these spiritual moments is a profound sense of oneness with all, a sense of belonging to the universe as a whole. This sense of oneness with the natural world is fully borne out by the new systemic conception of life. Okay? Another very renowned neuroscientist confirms that view. The notion of spiritual is an intense experience of harmony, I guess. And then he says, his purpose is not to reduce the sublime to the mechanic, and by so doing reduce its dignity. The purpose is to suggest that the sublimity of the spiritual is embodied in the sublimity of biology. We can begin to understand the process in biological terms. So the idea here is that you can accept evolution and religion. And reason and science are integrated. They're not split. Okay, next slide. Okay, evolution and our awareness of higher powers. He says spiritual experiences are connected to a natural desire to seek meaning and purpose in life. Humans have deep traits that drive us with great curiosity toward a systematic explanation of our own being and the world around us. In describing the neural maps in our brains, he claims the older maps regulate the bodily functions like digestion, and we don't have control over those. But over time, as our communities became more complex, we have a more complex system of maps, which leads to ideas and then ideas of ideas. Next slide. And then once you form an idea of an object, you can have an idea of an idea. Now the idea of God, or a higher power, is one of those ideas that naturally emerges from evolution. And then he claims there are two paths to salvation, or homeostasis, based on two views of this higher power. One path is through reason and knowledge, connecting us to God understood as nature. The other path is through institutionalized religion. Religious institutions are structured to evoke spiritual experiences. Prayer and rituals in the context of a religious narrative are meant to produce spiritual experience. Next slide. Albert Einstein also spoke of a cosmic religious feeling he experienced when he contemplated the universe. It takes the form of a rapturous amazement at the harmony of natural law, a sort of intoxicated joy and amazement at the beauty and grandeur of this world, which reveals an intelligence of such superiority that, compared with it, all the systematic thinking and acting of human beings is an utterly insignificant reflection. Geoffrey Lent also drew emotional inspiration from the implications of modern physics. The cosmic power of love is an ancient idea. Modern physics validates this venerable theory. Okay, next slide. I don't have too many more to go. We need a new paradigm of education, a new organization of the academic disciplines. Damasio says that if the blank slate view of the human psyche has been proven wrong, if so much research has shown that science and spirituality should not be split, we have to completely restructure our systems of education. We have to recognize the golden rule and other ethical teachings and agreements are not based in culture, but are rooted in our nature. The endeavor to live in a shared peaceful agreement with others is an extension of the endeavor to preserve oneself. Social and political contracts are extensions of the personal biological mandate. We happen to be biologically structured in a certain way mandated to survive and to maximize pleasurable rather than painful survival. And from that necessity comes a certain social agreement. Next slide. Culture is not superimposed onto our biological nature, but emerges naturally from it. The differences between cultures do not determine human nature. We can evaluate cultures according to whether they're organized to promote our biological flourishing. Beyond basic biology, there's a human decree, which is also biologically rooted but arises only in the social and cultural setting, an intellectual product of knowledge and reason. Such decrees all include the law that men must yield or be compelled to yield somewhat of their natural right, and they bind themselves to live in a certain way. One reason why the human decree may take cultural root is that the design of the human brain tends to facilitate its practice. 11, 12, okay. Next slide. Okay, so this would be a cross-disciplinary approach to education. In order to comprehend these cultural phenomena, we need to factor in ideas from anthropology, sociology, psychoanalysis, and evolutionary psychology, as well as findings from studies in the fields of ethics, law, and religion. We need a new breed of investigations aimed at testing hypotheses based on integrated knowledge from any and all of these disciplines and neurobiology. Human ethical behavior has a degree of elaboration and complexity that makes it distinctly human. So this is not a reductionist view. A part of our biological, psychological makeup has non-human beginnings. So we have a spiritual side. Our deep understanding of the human condition confers upon us a unique dignity. The variations we observe are based on evolutionary variations, gender, personal development. These are our ideas of ideas, including the idea of God or a higher power, as well as ideas of equality and justice. Okay, next slide. We have 5 left. Okay, a cross-disciplinary approach. Our life must be regulated not only by our desires and feelings of others expressed as social conventions and rules of ethical behavior. These conventions and rules and the institutions that enforce them, religion, justice, and socio-political organizations, become mechanisms for exerting homeostasis. That means that integrity and harmony at the level of the social group. In turn, activities such as science and technology assist the mechanisms of social homeostasis. The Constitution that governs a democratic state, the laws that are consonant with the Constitution, and application of these laws in a judicial system also are homeostasis devices. So is the fledgling 20th century development of worldwide bodies of social coordination, such as the World Health Organization. Okay, next slide. So, whoops, no, that's not the slide I have. So, all right, okay. None of the institutions, since we all have the same okay, whoops. Okay, so, all right, so this slide just talks about democracy is the best form of political association because we all have the same biological foundation. The only type of government that enables and encourages everyone to flourish is the rule of law, a democracy. The biological foundation of laws also leads inevitably to the necessity and legitimacy of international laws and institutions that create and enforce them. The Constitution that governs a democratic state, okay, and that's just a quote that confirms that. Okay, next one. Okay, yeah. None of the institutions involved in the governance of social behavior tend to be regarded as devices to regulate life, perhaps because they often fail to do their job properly, or because their immediate task aims mask the connection to the life process. The ultimate goal of those institutions, however, is precisely the regulation of life in a particular environment. I would just say behind this is Aristotle's view that statecraft is the art of weaving people together to form a stable, democratic, middle-class society. Indonesia has always been a supporter of the United Nations. This fits well with their cultural foundation: religious pluralism and humanitarianism, unity and plurality, deliberation, and social justice. Indonesia's way of providing services to all citizens within the context of a free market follows many other nations, a middle ground between the minimal government of the U.S. and China's single-party system. Next, okay. Indonesia's Pancasila and this new model. Given this new paradigm for human nature and culture, Indonesia could be a leader in creating a model of education that's based on Pancasila. All 5 of the points are relevant for creating this new system of education. The UN schools should be at the forefront because Islam has been particularly associated with religious bigotry, religious-based violence, etc. I know that Indonesian scholars, especially at UN schools, are publishing in many fields showing the pluralistic and humanitarianism of Muhammad and Islam. They could extend what they already do to focus on systems thinking and expanding their education models. Okay? Indonesia and the United Nations. Almost done. Indonesia has been at the forefront of the non-aligned movement, starting in 1945 with the Third World Conference in Bandung. Today, Jokowi is president of ASEAN at a moment when he's been outspoken in support of the same kind of non-alignment. Developing nations should not be forced to take sides in the Russia-Ukraine war, or to be forced to suffer economic sanctions for refusing to side with either the U.S. or China in their escalating tensions. There are more moderate Muslims committed to democracy and Pancasila's principles in Indonesia than anywhere else in the world. So Indonesia could work with the United Nations on their sustainability development goals, especially number 4, which is education. All the world's wisdom traditions condemn greed and exploiting nature, or the creation. They all have promoted sustainability. Okay, next slide. Thank you so much for inviting me. I only hope Indonesia can find the time money, and professional resources to take their place on the world stage in the formation of the new paradigm in education and all other aspects of culture, so we can have a global community that's sustainable and respectful of each other's traditions while recognizing our common biological heritage. So I also have a YouTube channel and all this other stuff. But anyway, I do have some articles and some YouTube things about Indonesia and Panchasila and Greek, Aristotle's spiritual humanism. So that's it.
Thank you, Martha. It's wonderful to have you again in our international conference, talking about, well, Indonesia's commitment to extend their educational system, to extend their Muslim norms to the world as a part of the global citizens. Harry, would you like to comment on Martha or ask some question or clarification?
That was a beautiful presentation with beautiful ideas. We work a lot with ancient Greek philosophy, Platon especially, since this is one basis of Ibn Rushd's philosophy. On the other hand, Platon and his particular ideas. I would like to, sorry, berisik di luar ya, maaf. I would like to comment on this this issue of myth and types. So what we recognize among our next generation, young people, is that they are losing their capacity and their competences of understanding narratives. I call it narrative competencies. The narrative competences are always are more and more under the pressure of what we call reality check or fact check, which is one of the major modern means against fake truth or fake facts. So between real facts and fake facts, the narrative understanding of types of humans, of characteristics of our psychological and even emotional and not only rational nature get lost more and more. This is why the young Muslims, when we ask them what is one of the features of a good imam or a good religious teacher, is they should read a lot of books and not only religious books. Because literature education, to my mind, from reading good books to going to the cinema, for example, gives you a training and understanding of how narratives work. And narratives following Platon's idea of anamnesis instead of empireia is likely to lead you to the truth in terms of understanding, or a good and sound understanding. You have this in Quran, this is my last sentence. In Surah number 4, the Quran uses al-istinbat. The word al-istinbat or al-istinbat al-hukm means a sound understanding based on communication. And I'm very happy that, I'm very glad, and it's a great idea, Martha, that you mentioned this idea of not following or only following principles, but conversation and dialogue, because sometimes truth is a matter of agreement. And
that's also Panchasila. I mean, that's Panchasila, you know. So
yes, it is, and it is not. It depends on how Panchasila is used. You can close it and make it sharp it like a weapon. You talk about weaponization, and Panchasila is being weaponized also in Indonesia. Yes. And on the other hand, you can open it in terms of what Bung Hatta and Bung Karno and these people meant when they talked about Panchasila. I had Panchasila lessons in SMA Plus. This was the PMP, you know. And you know what? From my teachers, I got 9 marks in Bahasa Indonesia, but only 8 marks in German language. That was just a joke aside.
Well,
True. So if you talk about if you mention Panchasila, you have to discuss it. It's like talking about tolerance. You have to discuss what you're talking about, because
that's
everybody
right.
uses the term tolerance against each other, mostly using a word like being intolerant. But
Yeah.
you pointed to it, very, very beautiful. Thank you, thank you, thanks a lot. I take a lot for my own thoughts from this.
Actually, I think maybe in America too, it's really, really awful because the contribution of the humanities to the academy is the ability to make analogies. So when you read history, you're supposed to be reading patterns and learn lessons. That's what Thucydides, he deliberately wrote a history about this is how we lost our democracy. Don't do this. And that's the
Yeah,
way I read Plato also. And so Plato's dialogues, I think, are written following the pattern of tragedy. So the so-called ideal state is not Plato's ideal state. There's 7 places where Socrates throws it out. So, but just the idea that you make analogies. And so Muhammad, a story of Muhammad, if you ask people which stories stick in your mind, they're always going to fit with a certain Aristotelian virtue. And there's going to be a story like that of Confucius or Jesus, like getting angry or, things like that. It's so
yeah,
amazing because it's based on the human condition.
yeah,
But Harry, you know as well as I that deconstruction and analytic philosophy, first of all, and then deconstruction, they're all based on this Enlightenment view
yeah,
of the
yeah,
psyche as a blank
yeah.
slate. And
Yes.
like, it's just terrible
Yeah,
because,
Martha, that leads me to, I talked about narrative competencies. I think we need dialectical competencies
yes,
to be added, because if I talk to my young Muslims in the classroom, they are not able to differentiate between historical truth and the truth in the sense of a truthful word. So they read a hadith from Muhammad, they take it for granted, then that this is the exact wording, that this is the truth, and there's no truth beside. And I said, you don't, what you have in front of you is a text. So you have to learn first what texts are, what is their nature, how they came into being, and why and how we can relate on texts. So this whole ability of decoding texts, of hermeneutical competences, of exegetical competences needs to be trained more thoroughly and more toughly in school. And this is a big, we have a big hole here in all our educational systems. And I think things like virtual reality and AI and ChatGPT contribute to the problem instead of problem solving, because sometimes digital platforms, they give you the illusion of speaking the truth, like it was with printed media years ago. What was printed was true and was not to be discussed. So the power of writing, or the power of the digits, should be replaced or should be corrected by the power of thinking, and we are losing the abilities to think among our young generations. But this is
well,
only maybe the side marks of an old man. So you don't have to follow me.
well, the other thing is science taught you. Okay, so in the ancient traditions, there's a difference between appearance and reality. And the conversion experience is that you turn around from believing what appears to be to some deeper truth, right? So Muhammad was an orphan, in this world, he looked like he was not a serious person, but then he actually was, right? He was the one. And it's just like Jesus, he was just a carpenter's kid. and Socrates was just a stone cutter. So in terms of status, money, power, they weren't, on the top, but in terms of spirituality. So you have to learn how to not believe what you see and think, the truth is some kind of pattern underneath there. So in the sciences, you're supposed to actually just obsess about the facts, what's in front of you. And so that has turned into religious fundamentalism. And it's true in all the traditions, Judaism and Christianity. They're all literally looking at those texts and reading them as if it's science, modern science. And this is a disaster. It's mindless. The word nous, mind, is this highest spirituality. And that's the education for the nous is not at all the same education as the one for intellectual virtues, the STEM. It gives you the idea of the good, God, or that, and then the human good, flourishing. And then you can tie your STEM to that. But it's a different kind of education, really. But I'm fighting the system, I'm telling you, Harry. It's really, and the thing that annoys me the most, let me just say this, is when the best and the brightest from developing countries come to the West and get all this deconstruction BS and all this stuff, and it alienates them from their own culture. And so they become alienated, and they're supposed to be the leaders. Oh, it just really makes me angry. But Pancasila, Indonesia, I think you really could be at the forefront, frankly. If you believe in yourself and get the resources, I think you could. And then just the fact that it's been weaponized is important, because Aristotle has also been weaponized, right? So we just have to admit that this can happen. It can happen in anything, and it happened in Indonesia. But you just call it out, and you just say that's not what it said. It's not really the right application of the theory. Does that make sense to people?
Yep, Martha, yep. But again, we can see you again now.
You can? Wow.
Well, you are in different direction of your camera, actually. So you got to be.
Oh, that's right. My camera's over here.
All right.
Okay.
All right. I think we got to conclude our conference right now. It's time already 1 o'clock here in Jogja, Indonesia. Midnight somewhere in Martha live, and then early morning. What time is it now, Harry? 4 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock?
Sekarang jam 8, Pak.
Oh, jam 8, okay. All right, so Harry gonna throw up his child to go to school, as he said early in the presentation. Well, we got to move on to the other session, so I think I got to conclude the conference right now. Thank you very much, our presenter from Melbourne, from Frankfurt, Harry and Martha from Lyons College somewhere in the US. Thanks very much, and see you next time, and we got to finish right now. I appreciate, and please applaud to us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Final word, Harry or Martha, please.
Saya?
Yep.
Saya harap kita ketemu di Jogja. Mungkin bulan Maret saya ke sana.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for for this beautiful conference, and we should continue talks and lectures.
Sure. Martha, final word, Martha?
Yeah, I've been allowed to be an editor of 2 different journals and a book with about 15 essays about Islam in Indonesia. So people want to work with me. I would add the Aristotelian humanism, and they would be the main author. So I look forward to that. And I also would love to be invited to more conferences, and that would be great. So
Thank you, Martha. We're going to have you again, I think, sometimes in November, as we usually have another international conference every November. Thanks very much. So we finish. I let you go, guys. Hari and Martha and everyone, thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Ya, makasih Pak Ridwan, makasih semuanya. Sí, lagi ya. Belum sempat dua baru, tapi yang berhasil, akhirnya berhasil, yang nggak berhasil. Karena Anda bersama menemukan salah satu kecil sekali. Satu bagian dari mereka. Itu kan oh ya weh. Jadi ceritanya itu tak materi, orang materi ya, nanti saya ya materi. Maka dari itu kita lain lagi. Barang itu, benar-benar